As if all the Cybertrucks spotted in the wild are not enough, Franz von Holzhausen brought his own Cybertruck to the Petersen Museum and showed it off to the viewers. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. First of all, it was a hellacious trip back from Belize yesterday. We were supposed to get back around midnight. We ended up getting back around noon today. So yeah, it was an extra 12 hours sleeping in the airport, all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully my brain is not complete mush, but I'm going to try to do this episode here. I thought it was really interesting to look at the state of Cybertruck and to realize just how close this thing is to production. So I'm going to first touch on what we already talked about in a previous video. If you haven't seen that, you can check it out up here. But anyway, the Cybertruck appeared recently in being shipped to New Zealand to what's obviously winter testing there. And as a point of comparison, the Model 3 was spotted doing winter testing about 6 or 8 weeks before its first delivery event. So we could be talking just a couple of months away from an actual delivery of the first Cybertruck. And that actually meshes fairly well with the little birdies that I've heard out there that told me the August to September timeframe is when they will be doing their first delivery event. So that means the truck is getting really close to release. And of course, as part of that celebration, I've got a couple of new merch store designs with the Cybertruck. This is where we're going. We don't need any paint, and it's got sort of a Back to the Future sort of logo there. Anyway, you can check that stuff out in the merch store. The link is in the description. So first up, let's take a look at a video that Electric posted in one of their articles. It's also on Twitter. And of course, I will leave a link to all of these things in the description. And thank you so much to everybody who took the original video and everything. I'm a little bit bummed I wasn't at the Petersen Museum, but I actually should be able to be there next week. I'm going out to see my brother briefly in California. So fingers crossed I will be able to tour SpaceX. I would love to actually do that. If anybody knows how I can get a tour of even the lobby or something like that in Hawthorne, that would be great. But I'm also going to try to go to the Petersen Museum and check out the Cybertruck and whatever else they've got there, because it looks like a fantastic museum. But anyway, in this recent article by Electric, we can check out the Cybertruck using the rear turning. You can see that the rear wheels are actually turning. Now, again, they're not going to turn like the crazy amount that a front wheel can, right? It's not going to be able to go like 45, 50 degrees sideways or something, but it will be able to turn to some extent, and you can use that to drive around. As Sawyer Merritt said, this will allow the Cybertruck to work much better in cities and tight spaces if you have to fit into a parking space or something like that. So you can see just a few, it's probably about 10 or 15 degrees it can turn, it looks like. But that makes a really big difference because, of course, a truck is a very, very long object, and if you can only turn it from the front, that means that the back end has to swing very, very wide. And I'm sure you've seen, at least if you live in the United States, people pulling their F-150s and 250s in backwards into parking places because it's complicated for them to get into the parking places if they pull in forward and then try to pull out. And what the rear wheel steering will allow it to do is to be able to pull into those kinds of places much more easily and corner much more tightly than it would be able to do if it just had front wheel steering. Speaking of which, here's a tweet from Sawyer Merritt that says, confirmed, front Cybertruck windows do roll down all the way. I guess there was some concern that they didn't roll down all the way. I don't know. I was never worried about that myself. But anyway, we can take a look at Franz and his children. I believe these are his children. I think that's what he says in the video. I'm not running the audio for this. And of course, if you want to check out the links, you can listen to the audio. You can also see that the back window is very, very low when it's open. It's not, it rolls down a long ways, and the front window does as well. And then of course he rolls it back down again to talk to the audience. But you can see that those windows go down a long ways when the car door is opened. Now, of course, the Model 3, Model Y, etc., they roll down a little bit when you open up the window so that they're not right up against the sill, but it looks like the Cybertruck does it more excessively. This is Franz's own version of the Cybertruck, so it's not a production version of it. You can actually tell when some people show the video up close, it's really beat up. He has driven the heck out of this thing. So, this is an earlier build, and so there could be some software glitches, there could be some hardware glitches, there's all sorts of things that could be going on that mean that the windows are rolling down further than we might think. The other thing is, check this out right there, push the button. So there's like a little button that you push. It looks like on the pillar, and then you roll your finger inside there to actually open up the rear door. And some of this stuff, again, might also be refined. My understanding when I was at Shareholder Day was that what you do is you swipe down on the B pillar, which is right underneath where the camera is, and that opens up the front door if it doesn't automatically happen with your phone as you approach it and it pops open. The rear door, it looks like there's maybe a button, maybe kind of, again, a swipey thing, or maybe you just sneak your hand into the little crevice back there. If we rewind here, you can let's just take a look right here as he comes up, right? See, you can see he's putting his fingers in there. I don't know, pushing something. So that looks like that might be more of a physical button. The front is definitely kind of a swipe. It doesn't have a physical button underneath the B-pillar camera. There's just some sort of a sensitive area where you just swipe down. And again, if you have your phone, it will obviously present itself as you approach with the phone. But the rear door probably, it looks like it's more of a mechanical type of situation where you actually press some sort of a hidden button or something like that. And then as you press it, you can see that he actually puts his hand inside. And then I believe what it does is it rolls the window down and it pops the door open just a little bit. So watch, the window starts to roll down as he pushes it, and then it pops open just a little. So you can see that it's now popped open enough that he can sneak his hand in there and he can pull the door open. And then we've got this one from Cybertruck, which says another tonneau in action video, but also the tailgate dropping. Cybertruck is going to be just otherworldly. So the tonneau is the cover that goes across the back of the bed of the vehicle. And if we play this, you can see the rear gate going down, and it is motorized, so it's not just something where you pull it down yourself. And then you can see the tonneau cover coming down, and you can also see that there's kind of a lip that it rides inside of, which may have some sort of, like, I don't know, some sort of little fuzzies or something like that to wipe dirt off or something as it's coming down, so that side area doesn't get stuck there. But it looks really, really elegant. It looks like it works very, very well, and it looks super exciting. That's like, that gets me really excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, this truck is going to be so useful with that cover, because that means that the entire bed is actually secure storage space. It's not something like in a regular pickup truck where whatever you put in the back of the pickup truck was just open, right? Somebody can just come along and take it if they want to. This means that it's completely secure. And also watch, it kind of comes up and it rolls up. Let me just pause this for a second and kind of go back. So as the person pushes the little side button here, there's some side buttons that obviously control the lift gate and the cover and all of that kind of stuff. But as he or she or whoever it is pushes it, you can see that it actually first rolls up. So there's like a clear window area, right, where you can see the back, you know, through the back of the truck, so you can see out the back. But it rolls up that first and then makes a nice little 90-degree bend, and it kind of comes out underneath this little lip area that's protecting it, and then rolls down these side areas that are protected with these slots here as well. And then very, very nicely rolls right there. And it, you know, is very, very clean looking. It looks like, again, maybe this, because it's pre-release, there's a little bit of a gap here, but even that is not that much. It's not going to affect the aerodynamics very much. And of course, as opposed to a bed where you have a lot of turbulent flow off the back end of a vehicle, like an F-150 or something, the traditional pickup shape, this will actually create a much more, you know, laminar flow over the top of the vehicle and should increase the range of the truck when it's driving in that mode substantially. And then this one also from Cybertruck, we've got some really, really nice interiors. One nice thing here is it looks like the seats are vented. So I'm going to show this a little closer up here. So you can see this is an interesting, not yoke steering wheel, but also not round steering wheel. So it's an interesting blend of what they've got. This may be a really nice refinement. And it looks like it's got a nice sort of arch on the top. So that'll make it easier to hand over hand turn it, but also to hold on to the bottom if you're driving long distances as a flat sort of yoke thing, so that you don't have to like hold it 10 and 2. Also, no stalks. Obviously, everything is just like the Model S and Model X, where it's all on the steering wheel itself and you move it. Oddly, this whole front area looks to be some sort of cloth or something like that. I can see stitching and everything going on here. And, you know, it looks like people's handprints and stuff. So it looks like a kind of a velour or something like that, which is a little bit odd, but you know, such is life. Anyway, so that should be an interesting aspect. But then if we look up here, you can't see it particularly well, but it definitely has holes in the seat. And one thing I have to say that I really do miss in our Model Y and Model 3 is I wish that they did have vented seats, because living in Georgia, it would be better than having heated seats. I would much rather have cooled seats. We need that much more of the year than we need heated seats in the wintertime. So it's nice in the winter to have that. I'd rather trade that for cooled seats, but I'm sure this does both. But anyway, that will be a really, really nice feature if that is available, because you'll then have the ventilation. So, you know, you're hot on a job site or something like that, and you can just cool off very quickly when you get into the vehicle. And then of course, here is the opposite side view, and you can actually see the ventilation better over here. This bottom left, you can really see that the perforations in the seat and everything, and also how well used this car is. And again, you know, this is Franz's car, so this like sort of velour cloth cover over the top behind the screen may or may not be there. You can't see this here, but according to Gregor Truck, there is no screen in the back seat for the kiddies, which is a little bit unfortunate, but such is life. But on the other hand, this screen in the middle looks to be the larger size screen that is in the Model S and X at this point, not the smaller size screen that's in the Model 3 and Y. And then this one from the Tesla Life is great. This is, I'm calling it under bed storage. I don't know, under boot, under trunk, whatever it is. But this is the equivalent of things that we already have in the other vehicles, which is that you've got the flat bottom of the boot of the vehicle or the back of the hatch or something. But then under that, you can open it up and have access to even more stuff. So this looks super, super cool. And it looks like it does. The other ones, like in the Model Y, you open it up and it's just a floppy piece or something like that. But this looks to have some sort of a piston, so it will actually stay open. So if you open it up, it'll actually remain open, so you can dig around and work in it and things like that. You can also see a bunch of what look like attach points up here along the side, very like evenly spaced circles. I'm not exactly sure how those will be used, but there's more traditional attach points like D-rings up here on the, at the top of the vehicle and down at the bottom as well. And then over here on the left-hand side, although it doesn't appear to be working in Franz's version of the vehicle, people are guessing that this little port, this little panel over here is where you would have access to like the 250 volt, battery pack. You would have access to the air compressor, things like that would be done from this area over here, which would make the truck, of course, very useful at a work site. And then we've got Sawyer Merritt, once again, Cybertruck Vault in action. So let's take a look at each of these videos. So here you can see another angle on the cover as well, and this is it going up. You can also see that there's a rubber gasket along the bottom. Maybe if I stop this for 1 second, if we go back to the very beginning. So watch over on the left-hand side, you can see there's sort of a gasket or something like that, that as the tonneau cover moves out of the way, it's moving out of the way. That not only should clean it and keep those runners a little bit cleaner, but also remember that this thing is supposed to be mostly waterproof. And even on the top, this means that if you put this down, it's going to be pretty darn waterproof. So you could drive it in a lake or something, but certainly a big rainstorm or whatever will not have any effect on this whatsoever because it's got that nice sealant there. And then here you can see those, what look like, again, attach points. Again, I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how those would be used. I'm showing my ignorance of truck stuff, but these look like they could be very, very useful. You could put bars across, you could do whatever you want. But then, of course, the more traditional D-rings at the top and the bottom, and there's also matched at the back end of that as well. And of course, look how well loved this bed is. It looks like he has definitely been making use of this bed and doing a lot of actual work with it, and people have been walking around in the back and all of that kind of stuff. So, a truck, as opposed to a sedan or something, a truck actually looks better when it's been used a lot. So this truck looks really fantastic, and it looks like it's been well loved. And then if we move down here, you can see right at the back of the tailgate, there is the rear, backup camera. So that's pretty obvious with a really cool little like triangular logo. We're going to get back to that when we get to the charging port, but this is kind of the thematic thing, is a sort of like two triangles or something like that attached to each other. This sort of Cybertruck logo, I guess. But anyway, that's very, very cool, very angular. I don't know that there's an actual thing that says Cybertruck or anything like that on the vehicle itself. So this might be as much branding as they actually get. But of course, the vehicle, being as incredibly unique as it is not really going to need much branding because it is going to stand out when you're driving it down the road. And then if we move down here to where the rear license plate would normally go and we go under the vehicle, you can actually see that there's really cool skid plates and things like that. And then again, it has been well loved. So this is the kind of thing that has not been treated gently. It's been driven over a whole bunch of stuff. So clearly, when I call this Franz's vehicle, it's not really his, but I'm sure that he and the team have been using and abusing it as much as possible. You can also see the suspension down here. It has, very large range of motion and everything. It's supposed to have air suspension, so it should be able to make it stiffer or looser or, be able to support more weight in the back. All of that kind of good stuff should be really, really cool to see when it actually is in production and people are using it. And then if we move up to the back left corner, I actually want to point this out real quick. This little corner here, I hope they sort of fix this in the production version, because that actually looks like an owie. You probably don't want, sharp points like that sticking out in places that if you're backing up the vehicle and you hit somebody's arm, it looks like you could actually cut them or something. They probably want to round that off or do something, I would guess. I don't know. We will see. But you can see these really cool little push buttons. It looks like there's 3 of them that you can come up and you can open and close the lift gate, and you can, I assume, open and close the cover. Maybe that's what that is, close and open and then lift gate. So I would guess that that's what that is, although I'm not positive about that. But anyway, really, really cool. Looks like the bed, again, might be a little bit smaller than it was previously. And it's a little unclear, but it is a possibility that connecting the dots idea that we might have turbine wheels could actually be a thing. So in other words, they could spin and actually work like the propeller on a boat to some extent. So very, very interesting information and very cool stuff to see there. And then we get a tweet from Ryan Zohuri, which I think he took this himself, but I'm not positive about this. But anyway, you can get a really nice shot of where that port would be here. So right there. So it doesn't look like it's currently attached to anything, like it's just an empty spot. But the guess would be in the production version, that's where you would get your high voltage electrical outlet and you would get an air compressor outlet. So that will be very, very cool as well. And then of course we get the nice close-up of the attach points and how the whole thing is put together. Looks fairly traditional truck in terms of like just having cabling and things like that, attach all those pieces together. And again, a nice close-up here of the gasket that will go around the tonneau cover as it's opening and closing to keep it watertight. And then finally over here on the back left, to keep it consistent with the other Tesla vehicles, we've got the charge port. By the way, with the NACS standard, I have a feeling that this sort of rear left idea will become the standard, because of course that will make it easier for other auto manufacturers to blend in if they're going to be using Tesla's superchargers. So in other words, it'll be more or less where the opening for the gas fill is in a current vehicle on the back left of most vehicles, unless you're Volkswagen, and I don't know why they always put it on the back right. But anyway, for most vehicle manufacturers, it's on the back left, and clearly Tesla went with that theme, and it's going to make the most sense for other vehicle manufacturers now to put their charge port there as well, to make it easier for the vehicle to fit into a Tesla supercharger stall. But anyway, check this out. It's really, really cool when you see what happens. So you basically push it, just like the current one on the Model 3, SX, whatever. But as it opens, you get this cool little logo here, which is like that Cybertruck logo again. So again, that sort of squashed triangle, but it's kind of a little bit multicolored or whatever. And again, it's kind of logo-y and stuff like that. But also look at this. We've got, as opposed to what we have in our Model 3 and Model Y, which is just a plastic thing that just fits over the cover and is not watertight at all. This clearly, we've got a gasketing system that's going to make this entire thing much, much more weatherproof. So that should mean that the truck can actually drive in water that's up to the charge port without water leaking into the charge port. You really don't want water leaking into your high voltage charge port, so this is a good idea. And obviously this is North American Charging Standard, or NACS. And speaking of NACS, one other very important thing here is this does not have room for the CCS adapter, which is currently mandated in Europe. So unless they did a complete redesign, because note that, this is within that sort of plastic demarcation of the wheel well of the left rear tire for the vehicle, they would have to redo the entire design to make it work with the larger charging port, which means that the Cybertruck, or at least this version of the Cybertruck, is just not going to be coming to Europe and probably not to China and stuff. Anyway, it's a very large truck anyway, so it's unlikely that that would be the version that would come to Europe. They would probably have a smaller version, but they would have to redesign this area in order to use CCS with it, because CCS is so much larger than this. So you can see the elegance and the beauty of being able to fit it with that small plug connector for the North American market. And, the fact that basically Tesla has doubled down and basically at this point they are winning the charging standard by having NACS and having so many other auto companies adopt that. For the likes of Hyundai, Toyota, Volkswagen, etc., they really need to adopt this as quickly as possible, because quite clearly this is what Tesla is going for, full bore, full stop. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have access to their supercharging network. And if you don't have access to their supercharging network, your cars, your EVs are going to have a serious hit against them, as people are looking to purchase them, they're not going to want to purchase them because they know that they won't be able to charge them as easily when they're driving around. As for what the charge voltage and things like that are for this vehicle, we don't know. The max charging speed is probably going to be around 400 kilowatts, maybe even more than that, maybe 500, but it's not going to be the standard 250 anymore. I'm sure it will work with the higher wattage version 4 superchargers that are out there. So this thing should be able to charge up relatively quickly, even though it's going to have a monstrous battery pack. I'm sure it'll be over 100 kilowatt hours, maybe even more than that for the 500-mile version. Of course, we still don't have the specs or the prices or anything like that for these vehicles yet, but we're getting really, really close, and hopefully we will see that relatively soon so that people can update their orders, including me, and we will hopefully find out about a delivery event maybe towards the end of August, maybe early September. Fingers crossed. That would be really, really cool to see. Who knows? Maybe I or some other people will be able to go to that delivery event. I think it'll be really amazing to see it in person. But in the meantime, seeing it doing winter testing and seeing all of the close-up details and the fact that Franz was cool with people basically walking around and poking their cameras all over the place on the vehicle was really awesome, because the last several times that I've seen the truck, I've had to stand way back from it and not be able to get very close. So it's really cool. I think they're pretty confident with it now. They're like, yeah, this is the real deal. This is what we're going to release. Again, this particular version is an earlier build that Franz is driving around, but the newer ones with the camouflage and stuff on them really do look like production ready versions. So are you excited about the Cybertruck? I definitely am. Like I said, I'm wearing my t-shirt right now. So I'm super pumped about getting this thing as soon as possible. I have a feeling, again, where I am in line, it's going to be a couple of years before I get it, but at the very least, hopefully somebody locally will get one and I'll be able to like ride around in it relatively soon after the first ones are delivered. But this is super exciting news. Tesla has been very open about the fact that it was really difficult for them to create the production methods to build this vehicle because it's so different. And they have 2, I believe, 9-ton Giga Presses that they're using to work on the Cybertruck. At least apparently that's what's going on. They seem to be getting configured and calibrated right now. So they really look to be getting ready to be able to ramp up this vehicle and start production in earnest. And if you're like me, that has you really excited about the next couple of months. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. If you did, please do like it so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my Patreon patrons, my YouTube channel members, and my Twitter subscribers. Thank you all for supporting the channel in any way that you can. I truly do appreciate it. And of course, if you want to join any of them, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a new Tesla, a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.